Okay, this time we've got Thought Slime taking on Gary Vaynerchuk, commonly known as Gary V, well-known self-help guy. In fact,
A grifter, a
well,
swindler, a
according to Thought
flim-flam
Slime, one
artist.
of all these things here. So
For legal reasons, I must.
we're going to take a look at the thesis here, which I already know is that he's already stated it. Gary V pretends to be all those things, but is in fact a grifter. And a dangerous type of guy. Pay attention to those words too. That's what he said. I have it muted.
Making hundreds of
But
thousands of
yeah, we're going to go
dollars
through this,
telling
debunk the
auditoriums full
premise,
of wannabe big shots
and
that they can and will make it.
explain
The
this type of
system's not broken.
insidious
The world doesn't need
othering,
to
this type of
change. They just need to
argumentation,
put in the work, and
which
it'll pay
really
off.
signals to a
100%
liberal audience
guaranteed.
that
Guys like
there
these will tell
is
you not to
no
look for
differing
easy
from the
answers. Don't
mainstream
complain about
opinion.
this.
There is the right opinion, and there is everything else. There is the right opinion, and there is everything else. Okay? That's the liberal line of thought. I'm going to prove that right here. Here we go.
Was a surefire way to get everything you wanted? Even if it was hard, wouldn't that be comforting? That's the grift. They make you feel safe and secure, but also encourage self-destructive behavior. Gary's not alone in this. There's a $1.9 billion industry of people just like him. If we want to protect ourselves from con men like Gary, we have to see how they operate. We need to study Gary V, which is going to be very difficult because he's just so very irritating. I struggled with precisely how rude I wanted to be to him in this video. I have to be a little bit rude because listen to the way that he talks.
I don't know much. What I do well is I talk, and then through reaction, I listen. So that's how I get a lot done in a meeting like this, right? There's different hustle within VaynerMedia, who has a hustle leader. There's different hustle between New York and LA. If you actually took a step back and became honest with yourself and deployed self-awareness, this is the easiest time in the history of America to be successful at business. For everybody that just raised their hand, that isn't annihilating it, you suck. And LA's on fire, my fastest growing office, and they're on fire, and it's still different because nature's real. That I don't need to drink, that I don't need to eat, that I don't need to fucking sleep. Well, I need to sleep, let me rephrase. But I definitely don't need to eat and drink, right?
All right, Gary
So,
V, I will confess, I don't know a lot about him. He does seem like a bit of a goofball for sure. But nothing he's saying is fundamentally wrong. Just a bit corny, I'd say.
than updating their
I
minds.
suppose that's the point of this. So,
But I
but
don't want
yeah,
to be too
I agree
rude.
so far.
I'm not
He is
here
a
to
bit
just
corny
make
for
fun
sure.
of Gary. I could do that. Watch. Gary's like if cocaine were a guy. Uh-oh, someone put Ethan Klein on the wrong dryer cycle and shrunk him. How many Gary V's does it take to change a light bulb? Well, how
Jesus,
badly
Ethan
does
has
the light
gotten
bulb want
fat.
to change? Hey, light bulb, are you making content for TikTok? It's organic reach, bro. See? It's easy. But I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to be mean. Not because I care about Gary's feelings, I don't, but I do care about your feelings. And I don't want to make anyone feel foolish for being taken in by these dillweeds. And maybe some of you were genuinely helped by something Gary V said or did. I think he says and does harmful things all of the time, but by no means does he only say or do harmful things. He's a real person, not a Captain Planet villain. At the very least, he's going to do good,
You know,
like,
this type of
incidentally.
like gray area preempting that he's doing here would be fine if the premise of the argument isn't that, and it always is with these liberals. The premise of the argument is always that if you if you succumb to this narrative, like the good things that he's teaching, if you fall for that, then he's going to get you with the real dangerous stuff, right? You're going to end up falling into this sphere of everything else that's wrong. I don't know what he's going to connect it to yet, so I don't want to presume, but it's the slippery slope. So, you know, it's one thing to be like, you know, hey, he's not perfect, but he does say some good things, right? And then just leave it at that, right? Which is what a normal person would do. But no, when you're signaling to your audience that this is not somebody to be trusted under any circumstance, you've got to make yourself appear to be intellectually neutral on the matter. You have to say, well, yeah, some good things to say, no doubt. But then you had him with a but, and then followed up with, if you listen to everything he says, you're going to hell, and it's really pretty easy to fall into that. So it's best to just avoid him altogether. You know, you best just to ignore the whole premise of what he's telling you, which is really to just work harder. Vote for us instead.
Every now and then. So if you're a Gary Vee fan, I want you to know up front, I don't think I'm smarter than you. I don't think I'm smarter than him. Please keep an open mind and listen to what I have to say for your own sake. And keep this question in mind as you watch. Even if Gary doesn't intend to harm people with his advice, and I suspect that he doesn't, isn't it kind of a problem that he could if he chose to?
What? No, it's not. What do you mean? You could harm people with your advice. You have a
Hey
platform.
Taylor, it's
You could
Gary
harm
Vee on
people.
the Ask Gary
Is
Vee
that a
show.
problem?
No
What kind of question is that?
way!
Yes
In this
way.
video, a young citizen of Gary V Nation named Taylor calls in to talk to Garvo himself. Taylor just graduated college and feels kind of lost. As a student of Gary thought, she knows she has to get in that Sigma grind set. She's got to work, bitch. But work bitch at what? Luckily, Gary always has time to help out a fan, so he pretends to listen to her until it's his turn to talk and then spends the next 17 minutes straight berating her.
I'm romantic about the journey and the process, which is why I'm actually gonna pull it off. You're trying to be a millionaire by 25. How, Taylor?
It's just a goal I've always had.
Why?
And right
He says that for Taylor to make anything of herself, she has to meet a bunch of absurd goals that nobody would ever be able to do, and then gets angry when Taylor claims she's up to the challenge.
So you need to be fast, 7 a.m. to 2 in the morning every day? Just put in work and enjoy that. Enjoy eating shit and dirt and bleeding and the grind, and don't give a fuck about what anybody else thinks. Have 4 jobs, fucking Wendy's, Walmart, your side hustle, work.
Okay, so in less than 8 years, when I'm a millionaire by 25, I'll come shake your hand.
I promise you that statement itself made me 100% guarantee that you won't.
He makes
That's
ridiculous, impossible
okay. It sounds to me like Gary Vee is sort of the from what I just heard, he's giving a reality check to a woman who wants to make it in business, the same way that Kevin Samuels would give reality checks to women who want to date way out of their league, right? And that's what passes for like misogyny or being a jerk. To me, it sounded like Gary Vee was being completely reasonable. Why do your goal of being a millionaire at 23 is not only unrealistic, it just isn't going to happen, right? It's why set yourself up for failure? I presume is that argument. I mean, listen, if that was supposed to be the worst of that argument, right, which is I'm assuming he's selectively choosing the worst moments of that 17-minute rant apparently that he goes on. And if that was the worst part of it, then I'm assuming the better part of it was probably stuff like, listen, you should set a more realistic goal, and you can work hard, and that's great. You should have an excessive, you should have a high goal, but that's excessive, right? And you're just setting yourself up for failure. I assume that's probably the message. And if it's not, then again, even the worst part of what was shown wasn't really that bad. To me, it just sounded like a reality check. There's nothing wrong with that. So right off the bat, you're on shaky
claims
ground
about
here,
how
I'd
much he
say.
himself worked to get where he is today.
Thought
At one
slime.
point, going so
I'm
far as
on
to
to you,
call
thought
somebody
slime.
Spent more downtime on Not Your Career this weekend than I did in my entire 20s combined.
Oh shit, okay.
Hey, Gary, you got married when you were 29. Did you have a wedding, Gary? Did you have a honeymoon? Seems like that would require some time to yourself. Side note, pay close attention to this.
Oh, it
facial
definitely sounds
expression.
like
If
bullshit,
someone ever
what
makes
Gary
a
Vee just
bold,
said. Wait, that
unlikely
definitely
claim
sounds like
and then
bullshit.
quietly stares at you, that person is lying. This is a tactic that
But I've already
manipulative
conceded
douchebags
that
use, where you create
Vaynerchuk is
silence,
clearly a
and that makes
cornball,
people
so I don't,
uncomfortable, so they fill
whatever.
it with
I mean, nobody
affirmation,
believes
like,
that.
yeah,
Nobody should
sure,
believe
whatever,
that.
yeah.
But I admit
Okay,
it. It's
this
it's
is what
it's
that
dishonest to
sounds
say
like.
that for sure.
Oh shit, okay. That puts things into perspective.
I think so.
Very clear in the clip that Taylor is uncomfortable, and who wouldn't be? It feels like she's just trying to say whatever it is that's going to get him to stop
I mean, at the end of the
criticizing her.
day, if his
He's
goal was to
relentlessly
talk her
negative,
down off that
contradicting her
cliff of
constantly,
having such a
telling
silly
her that
goal,
every impulse she
then
has that she's
it seems
lying
like he
to
succeeded. And if
herself
that's the
because she
case, I
doesn't
think
have
that's
the
probably a
drive or
positive
enough
thing.
motivation to achieve anything.
Have realistic
I
goals.
feel like I need to hit rock bottom.
Nothing
so
wrong
I
with
can have
that.
wake up. I'm too comfortable right now, and it's annoying the shit out of me.
I don't think so. I think you're saying you need to hit rock bottom because it buys you more time to bullshit like you are right now. You just need to understand the following. You can trick losers. You're not tricking me. You might be able to trick your Uncle Hal, and you might be able to trick your girlfriend that was in your fucking college with you, but you're not tricking a winner when you're bullshitting. Got it?
Got it.
So even if you're posturing and pandering and PRing yourself, no winner thinks you're winning.
It's honestly kind of shocking to watch. It seems like no matter what
Again,
Taylor
it's
sets her
just all he did was be not polite. Like that's it. That you're just mad at him for being rude. So fucking what? She called him. She can hang up at any moment if she can't handle what he's saying, right? She's an adult, I presume. I don't know who she is, how old she is. Doesn't matter. The point is she's not being forced to talk to him. So that's ridiculous. It's a dumbass argument. He's under no obligation to be polite to anybody who is taking up his time. Under no obligation whatsoever.
community will be watching her to make sure that she acts on his advice.
What's your Twitter handle? Or Instagram? What's your Instagram
I
handle?
don't.
That's fine.
Instagram, it's
At
yeah.
me and my whole team and the entire Vayner Nation is watching.
Oh shit. Okay.
I'm gonna
Got it.
I'm gonna smoke you out of your bullshit.
And that would be ominous enough on its own, but he doesn't give any advice. Seriously, watch it if you don't believe me. The link is in the description. The two main points he makes are that she should work very hard, something she already believed when she called in, and that she should not be concerned with the opinions of others. So hey Taylor, Gary V Nation is going to be watching you to make sure you capitalize on the advice Gary didn't give you. Otherwise, you're a failure person who will die poor and everybody's watching.
Well, that's something interesting because at the beginning of the video, by the way, the premise of the video so far, right, if we remember, is that this guy's a scammer, right? So it sounded to me like that girl was quite desperate and in fact quite delusional. In fact, I would say in terms of her life goals, right? That seems like quite a nice. If I'm a con man, that really seems like somebody I'd be interested in pursuing as a long con, right? That seems pretty easy. Somebody who's this delusional and desperate to succeed and follow in your footsteps, and somebody who will listen to you, even if you're being that rude. He's being that rude to her, and she's still listening to him because she respects him that much. If this guy was really a con artist, I think that was a perfect mark. All right. So, and in fact, he did quite the opposite. And this Thought Slime himself admits that not only did he not take advantage of her and fluff her ahead with these unrealistic ideas, but actually he's calling out her bullshit. He's actually sort of humiliating her. But I do think it's necessary because clearly this girl has some misguided notions of her self-worth. I mean, you know, be her ego is a little too big, right? Clearly. I mean, you need to be realistic. You need to be a realistic person. And I think that's a fine message. And I think any way he gets that across is fine. And if he smokes out her bullshit, then good. The thing is, either way, it's a positive outcome. Either she adjusts her expectation to a more realistic one, or she really does do it, and in which case, great, fine, she was right and everybody is wrong, but so be it. That would be the exception. That would definitely be the rarity.
Watching you do it. Good luck! He says a lot of troubling things to this young woman, but the most bone-chilling of all of them is this.
But in the big picture, you need to realize nothing good is gonna happen for the next 6 years.
Okay.
Oh boy, okay, that's some Disney villain shit right there. Asking this person to trade 6 years of her youth to achieve some vague idea of future success, which he also forbids her from desiring or enjoying, because then it'll go away. Doesn't that sound like a Faustian bargain someone would make with an evil sorcerer? And here we see the heart of Gary V's swindle, the innovation that drove him to the tippity top of the
Literally,
bullshit artist charts.
as usual, the liberal problem with this type of message is to just work that they're telling you to just work hard. Of course, he means in the next 6 years, your life is going to suck because you're going to put your head down and grind and try your best to succeed in life, right? To get your goals. That's what he means, of course, right? Right. And asking some youth, he didn't ask her to do anything. I once again point out that that girl called into this show. So what the fuck? I mean, excuse my, you know. But at the end of the day,
Hard work and talent. And by the way, everybody's got talent.
Gary sells you a get-rich-slowly scheme. If you listen to his bullshit and do as he does, you will develop an attitude of success that just draws wealth and opportunity to you. The reason most people can't succeed, and those that do only succeed temporarily, is because they haven't cultivated the correct mindset. Without that mindset, money, success, status, they're all vanishingly rare and fleeting if you do manage to grasp them at all. But with this mindset, success is inevitable. You will succeed, whatever that means to you, period.
Self-awareness and work ethic.
this is interesting because this guy runs a YouTube channel, right? I wonder what he chalks his success up to. Was it a mindset? Is his regular uploads, his production value? I mean, look at him. He's wearing makeup. He's got a fucking suit on and whatnot, right? Does this person work hard? Have a certain mindset when it comes to their work to succeed like this? I mean, what else are they going to chalk it up to? Is what I want to know. Other than just doing it, just actually doing it. And to me, it's kind of insidious that he's sitting here in front of his audience, knowing that he had to build this up, right? This channel he had to build from nothing. And telling his audience that they are incapable of doing the same thing, right? That it doesn't matter how hard they work, they should never expect to be rewarded for it, right? That's what he's telling them. If there are any young audience members of his that maybe thought about being a content creator, how discouraging of a message is that going to be, right? That it doesn't matter if you work hard, you shouldn't expect to succeed anyway. The message that you're being sold here by Gary Vee is a lie, because if you work hard, you still won't succeed. That's all these. That's literally what his whole argument.
19th century or whatever. He claimed that he'd been cured through self-hypnosis. Quimby believed, or claimed to believe anyway, in the discredited pseudoscience of mesmerism. The idea is that all living beings possess an invisible and intangible force called magnetism, not to be confused with the actual invisible and intangible force of magnetism, which makes things stick to your fridge.
Fucking magnets, how do they work?
So you can manipulate your body's magnetism in a bunch of ways to produce different effects, usually through what we would today recognize as stage hypnotism. Quimby began an alternative medicine practice claiming that all illness was caused by bad thoughts having bad effects on your brain magnets. Bad thoughts change the magic shit in your body to make you sick, but he could help you think the good thoughts that made you better. Because all you gotta do is think really hard that you're not sick, and you won't be.
As far as you know.
Don't go to a real doctor though, whatever you do. Getting any medical treatment for any illness or injury means you have to think you need it, which means you think you're sick or injured, which causes that to happen in the body because of magnets. What's worse, a doctor might suggest to you that you have some sort of illness that you don't have, and then you'll think you'll have it, and you'll actually get it because your magnet will attract it to you. So obviously stay away from any real medicine. Just think that you're not sick, think it as hard as you can, truly believe it, and you won't be sick. Money, please. Quimby posthumously attracted a group of followers who collected his flim-flams into a variety of nonsense ideologies collectively called New Thought. All of them claimed you could heal yourself using nothing but your brain, but the reasoning for why you were supposedly able to do that varied greatly. But that idea only appeals to people who are very sick, and you don't get a lot of repeat business. For some reason. Gradually, the idea morphed from you have the ability to affect the magic magnets in your body with your thoughts to you can just do whatever. Your thoughts have power over the world for some reason. You're magic. I don't know. Money, please. Several religious movements argued, for example, that since everybody is made by and of God, every person is therefore made of a little bit of that tasty God sauce. So we all have a little bit of God's superpowers. Or maybe praying will make God change your circumstances for you, so all you gotta do is have more faith in God, and He'll fix all your problems. And we know the good prayers that get God to do that for you. Money, please. Many modern-day religions and religious practices can trace their origins partially back to New Thought, including some big names you've actually heard of, like, arguably, Christian Science, though the Christian Science Church denies this officially, but come on. Their founder, Mary Baker Eddy, was a patient of Quimby's and believed the same stuff he believed, but just said it was for God reasons instead of the invisible magnets in your brain. On faith healing ideas, every time there was any kind of economic downturn, suddenly, these dumpy doodles would pop up and tell everybody that they could make you rich just by thinking stuff. See, your big powerful brain has the ability to attract results to you, and they can teach you how for some money, which they need to get from you, even though they could just think about it and get it for free, but okay, sure. In 2008, right about the time that the economy diarrheaed in its pants, The Secret's author runs a bunch of baloney negative outcomes. This is lifted whole cloth from New Thought.
It's
The
clear
law
where
of
it's going.
attraction.
I mean, he's
You'll prevail with
connects
your
Gary
amount
Vee
of
and or
flittering
a sort of
counterpart you most
quote-unquote
charge that
grind set, if you will, with this sort of
set it
New
open to
Thought
receive.
style pseudo-religion,
Gives margin of the oil that came up in the time of the Great Depression. It is difficult to
which feels tenuous, you know.
evidence to suggest that the two men actually met. Just to tie this all
But you're really
together,
spending a
he
lot of
also
time
wrote a
on
book
these
called The
guys
Law of
here.
Success. Yes,
Okay, yeah,
yes,
these
yes,
guys are
yes,
cringe,
yes,
these
yes,
guys are
yes,
ridiculous.
yes,
What does this have to do? This is a long time to spend on not Gary Vee in a video about Gary Vee. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I'm telling you, it will happen.
But that's where the genius lies with this grift. See, if you ever complain that the techniques aren't working or wouldn't work, then you admitted you're not really believing in them. And since you need to believe them for them to work, well, there's your problem. It selects for people who are willing, nay, eager to delude themselves. Enter Tony Robbins, who revolutionized this grift. Robbins lists Think and Grow Rich as one of his favorite books and a must-read, but he flipped the script, so you don't just change the way that you think and let that change your life. That's too hard. You won't do it. Instead, you behave as though you believe the good thoughts already. You need not actually believe them. Actions come first, and belief emerges from action. Simply observe how successful people behave and mimic them. And since that behavior made them more successful, it'll do the same for you. And over time, this helps you believe the good thoughts, which reinforce the good behaviors. Now walk across some hot coals to prove the power of belief, even though, like, walking on hot coals is safe whether or not you believe it is. But, doing it kind of activates the danger center in your brain, which makes you more pliable. The subtle brilliance of this is in reframing the narrative from learning the secrets of the successful to seeing
Yeah,
them as
obviously
role
it's
models to
cringe that you're
continuously
walking
emulate.
across
A merger of
coals,
business
but again,
advice
there's
horseshit
nothing
and law
wrong
of
with the
attraction
message
horseshit.
that
And it grounds it all in what looks to the
how
outside
is it
observer.
there's no justification
Jobs-
for why it's horseshit. There's no justification for why it's horseshit. It's demonstrably true that this guy works hard on his YouTube channel, and that's why it succeeded. That's a factual statement. He knows it for a fact, right? All he's doing is denying that that's true to his audience. I guess he's saying he was picked out, he won the lottery. I don't know. The whole message behind this, again, I say it all the time, but once again, the liberal mindset, the victimhood mindset. Everything is the fault of society. There's nothing within your power to control. Don't bother. Your life is outside your hands, and give up. Vote for us. Vote for us is the end of the story. That's all these people do. They sit around in their echo chamber. They reinstall doublethink. They reinstall the correct updated thought on a daily basis. You're not allowed to disagree. Again, we're 20 minutes into the video. I mean, he did talk about Gary Vee at the beginning and how he's cringy, right? But we've already debunked the premise of that. We'll watch this a little bit more, but I really think that we see where this is going. I mean, I don't think we need to spend another hour on this because it's quite obvious that we're 20 minutes into the video. The initial premise hasn't been justified whatsoever, which is that Gary Vee is a scammer. Not one iota of that. You've spent 15 minutes building up this connection with this pseudo religious movement
got rich. You
or
can't deny
movements
that
that
Steve Jobs
appear
was rich.
throughout
All you gotta
history.
do is mimic the way Steve Jobs
And
sees
that
the
just
world,
feels
and
tenuous.
you
But I'm
take
gonna
away
give him a
from
chance.
it
Let's see how he
the
chooses to
underlying
connect that.
assumption
Let's
people
find
get
out.
rich because of the way they see the world. But like Steve Jobs got rich because he invented computer. You're not going to invent computer. Crucially for Robbins, you no longer have to see yourself as someone lacking success to benefit from learning his strategies. Even if you're successful, you could always get a little more successful. You could always learn new strategies, new techniques, new ideas. This opens the door to new markets. It's no longer simply unhappy people who seek out self-help, but anyone who wants to make more money, which is everybody. Patreon.com/thoughtslime, please. I spent so long making this video. It's 25 pages and script. I don't want to lose my career. Please, please, don't do it for me.
I worked so hard. Please reward my hard work. Wait, but I thought hard work was never rewarded. I thought hard work was irrelevant to your result. So what do you mean? Why are you complaining how long the script is?
Anyway, getting back to why it's bad to manipulate people, this brings us full circle to Gary Vee, who is obviously influenced by Tony Robbins. Now, Gary loudly and often rejects this comparison, saying he doesn't want to be anyone's Tony Robbins, but he very clearly does. For one thing, he does all sorts of speaking engagements at events with the literal actual man, Tony Robbins. Like he does the same thing in the same places at the same time. For another, listen to how he begins this interview with Tony Robbins. He points out how because Robbins swears a lot, it takes pressure off of Gary not to swear so much.
Thank God for your documentary, because people realized that you cursed, and that gave me the air cover. People were like, oh, Gary, it's okay that you curse now. I'm like, thank God.
The first thing he wants you to know in this interview, anything Tony does or says in his professional career gives Gary license to do the same. Right off the bat, you should think of them as similar types of guy, as peers, doing similar work. So we can draw a direct line from the complex web of horseshit built around the idea that our thoughts can literally change reality straight to Gary. Even if he does not consciously believe that, he is very clearly influenced by people who do. That's the space.
Once again, this is what passes for a straight line among liberals. It's so funny how this guy argues in exactly the same way that FD Signifier did. You draw these really tenuous connections between somebody, from, I don't even remember what that Quimby guy was from, probably the early 20th century or something, late 19th century guy, probably snake oil salesman kind of guy. And you draw such a loose connection between that and then these weird religious guys, movements, and then now Tony Robbins and now Gary Vee. And it's all along the way. You've yet to show that Gary Vee himself is peddling an idea that's along those lines. All you're doing is trying to play this guilt by association game, and you people call this a straight line. I mean, it's a joke to call that a straight line. How about you contend with what the man is actually saying, instead of drawing these long, ridiculous, circuitous connections. I mean, literally playing guilt by association mixed with telephone and calling it a straight line. What is this obsession with straight lines that you people think you can draw? I mean, what a joke this is. You have to contend with the idea that the man is saying. You can't play this game. This is not a serious way to debate somebody. This is all you're doing is making propaganda. All you're doing is trying to paint this guy as a demon in the eyes of your audience. And there's nothing more to it. This is not a serious attempt to engage with what's being said.
He's in. He
It
absolutely
never
shares
is
the
with these
central
people.
conviction
It
of new
never
thought, that
is
the way
with
you
these
think
people.
is what decides the outcomes of your actions.
This is it. Is your perspective right? Are you happy? Are you putting yourself in a position to succeed? There's only one way you can be a workaholic. You love it. What's incredibly clear to me at this point in my career is that from a business standpoint and clearly from a life standpoint, I think we grossly underestimate perspective. I really genuinely believe that life is exactly as you see it.
Gary's worldview starts with the assumption that everything that has happened to you is the result of a conscious choice you've made. That you, and you alone, are responsible for the material conditions of your life.
You want to get real happy, if that's what we're aiming? Leave this conference and realize anything you're complaining about or are sad about is, because it's true, 100% your fault.
Put another way, your attitude, the way that you think about the world, shapes or attracts the results that come to you. Gary's
Yep,
reasoning
the
is
translation. There's the doublethink, the liberal doublethink, exactly what we saw in FD Signifier's video. Again, Gary Vee's message very clearly is take responsibility for your own life. If you're sad about something, do something to fix it, or give up being sad about it. That's a beautiful message, and I encourage anybody to live by it. Either fix it if you can, and if you cannot, then learn to live with it. Accept it. And again, you see FD Signifier do it. Now we see Thought Slime do it. These liberal quote unquote thinkers, right? Translating that for their yuppie audience, for their sheep audience, saying, now translating that into
a bit more realistic, but nonetheless relies heavily on magical thinking. In his view, if you go all in on your passions, you develop this indefatigable compulsion to work, which is what's required to succeed.
Funny thing happens when you start doing things that make you happy. You start working more, harder. You become invigorated. You like it. All of a sudden, funny things happen. When you like it and you put in the work, results start happening.
You have to find something that you're so passionate about doing that you want to do it 100% of the time. Something that you can spend every waking moment doing without ever getting tired of it. For me, that's bullying Gary. Gary, you look like you're 15 years old and 60
that's
years
funny,
old
but
at the same time. It's not all that
clearly
different from how
infantile.
Napoleon Hill described desiring riches
I don't have
with a
anything wrong
state
with
of mind
infantile,
that
though.
becomes an obsession. I have no reason to believe that Gary adopted that philosophy from Hill, but it is the same philosophy. It's the same thing, and it works for the same reason. Those who are not willing to lie to themselves self-select out of listening, and you're left only with people willing to believe whatever you say, people who will force themselves to believe whatever you say. In his book, Crush It, Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion, he always talks like this. He gives the example of someone writing a blog about their passion for worms. The worm blog is eventually picked up by some biz dev guy who recognizes the potential for worm money, and from your worm knowledge, boom, you have a successful business selling worms to birds? I don't know. Well, I mean, in context, it's actually pretty clear that he's talking about fishers, but you know, I wanted to make the joke. The point is that even if your passion is something boring and gross like worms, you can make money from it because he imagined that you did. So that proves it's possible. Likewise, any barrier that you believe you face in the world, Gary can imagine a scenario where you overcome it. Therefore, it is possible to overcome it. If things are hard for you, that just means you gotta work harder to succeed. So you should listen to Gary even more than you do now. And if it sounds like I'm being uncharitable here, here's Gary explaining what he thinks is the best advice one can give women entrepreneurs and African Americans.
I'm on a hot no excuses kick. I have a lot of female entrepreneurs. I have a lot of fans that are African Americans. I spent a lot of time in that community in my college years. I just think I'm giving the best advice to women and minorities in business today, which is tough. Like, the market just doesn't care.
Tough shit, buddy. Stop complaining that there are systemic problems
Can you
which affect
imagine
you
a
and
world where people don't just fall over themselves apologizing for every little thing that's wrong with your life? Oh, you poor thing. Oh no, poor baby. Oh, really? Your life is hard? Oh, that's so sad. Oh no, you poor thing. You know what? Don't bother working. You deserve a rest because your life is hard. All you need to do is vote for us. That's all you ever need to do, little baby. Don't worry. Just vote for us. Haha. Let me rub your little belly.
simply
Let me
overcome
rub
your
that little
problems,
tum-tum,
dummy. It's so
baby.
simple. Just don't have problems. How hard is that? From this clip, it would be easy to jump to the conclusion that Gary doesn't believe in systemic racism or systemic sexism. I don't think either is the case. Though, to be honest, I don't think what he is arguing is any better. In Gary thought,
Yeah, of
the
course you
world
don't,
is
because it doesn't
fundamentally
end with
unfair.
vote for
You
me.
can't change it, you can't fix it, it just is. But with enough perseverance and dedication, you individually can overcome any bad circumstance. So, rather than dwell on the position you find yourself in, you have to work that much harder to ensure your own personal success within that unjust system. He's arguing that the way to overcome systemic oppression is to outcompete the oppressor, to be better than them, just win in a game that was rigged against you. Duh. If a black woman has to work twice as hard as me to get the same results I do, that's a happy ending to Gary. She got the same results I did. That proves that with enough hard work, anyone can get those results. So what's your excuse? And in case you think I'm being uncharitable here, here's him saying that.
The reason I say the thing that if there's anybody that ever looked like you that made it, then there's no excuse, is because I believe it. You know, it's really hard. You're in an argument and your friend tells you, that's great, Gary, but both my parents were alcoholics. If anybody has ever been successful that had two alcoholic parents, which, by the way, I know of 3, well then, now what's your excuse, Karen?
People have no right to be angry or upset about having to work harder if the system they're in technically permits them to succeed. That isn't even something worth discussing. Tough shit, quit whining. And I understand the cold-hearted logic of it. As an individual, one person can't destroy systemic racism or sexism or the intersection thereof. So it's better to focus on doing whatever you need to do in order to get what you want out of life. You're forced to be tougher than privileged little fancy lads like me. And I certainly don't want to speak for women or
pathetic
black people,
self-effacement.
about half of whom are themselves women, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say they've probably thought of that.
Man
People
up.
who face systemic disadvantages are probably aware that they have to work harder, and that's the problem. Do you get that? Like, having to work twice as hard as me or Gary and to get the same results means that Gary and I get the results and a bunch of spare time to do with whatever we want, and less of the stress that comes along with having to work twice as hard. It is something that people should complain about, that should make people very mad. But you gotta remember, Gary believes that your mindset is what makes you rich or poor. Focusing on the difficulties you face makes it harder to believe you can succeed, which prevents you from taking the action necessary.
Okay, I'm done watching this. I mean, it's obvious where this is going. This is the same bullshit FT Signifier pulled. It's the same bullshit. That's the only argument these people know how to make. Basically, Gary Vee is refusing to let people not hold themselves accountable for the state of their own lives. That's what Gary Vee is interested in doing. And he's going to do that. He's going to apply that evenly across all races. In fact, and sexes. In fact, not only is that not racist, that is the definition of egalitarian. Gary Vee clearly is applying his message consistently. I don't care what the excuse is. There's no excuse big enough. Just go do it. I mean, if you have 2 choices in life. I'm going to say it again. You have 2 choices in life. You can listen to people like this who tell you nothing is possible. Systemic, blah blah blah. Society has the blame for everything wrong with your life, or you can take responsibility for what you can control and go out there and do what you can to fix it. And I guarantee you, it's a fact that just by trying, you will improve your circumstances. Just by trying, you will improve your circumstances. How much? Nobody can say. But that doesn't matter, because the point of the message, and it always has been, is that it's the journey, okay? It's the journey that matters. It's never about the destination. You ever read any kind of literature? You ever study any kind of film? You know anything about art? It's always about the journey, the self-improvement. That's what's important. And that's what these people don't ever want you to ever try. They don't ever want you to try to improve yourself. Once you do, you realize you don't need them. Once you do, you realize that their whole message about systemic blah blah blah, the reasons why you can't do this and that, go out the window, and then you have to face the reality. And the reality is this, that life is getting harder for everybody in the world. Life is getting harder for everybody in the United States, especially. Prices of things are going up. Wages are also going up, but they're not going to keep pace with this inflation that's coming up. People are having a hard time. That means men are having a hard time. And men especially need this kind of encouragement because the mainstream feminist viewpoints, the types of viewpoints that are peddled by people like this, so-called intellectuals like this on BreadTube, are poisoning the minds of men in a generation that needs to be strong. We need strong men right now more than any time ever because society is going through it. And this American democracy of ours is in a rough spot. So don't listen to people like this. You can improve your life. You can improve yourself, and you should try it because you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose by trying. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching.